All right, let's jump right in. Imagine your body has this powerful engine that controls your metabolism, how fast you burn energy, how fast your heart beats, literally everything. Now picture that engine's gas pedal getting jammed to the floor. That right there is hyperthyroidism. It's a really intense condition when you think about it. So what actually happens when your body is just stuck in this constant state of overdrive? Let's get into it. So officially, hyperthyroidism is when your thyroid gland, that little butterfly-shaped gland in your neck, starts pumping out way too much of its hormones, T3 and T4. And these hormones are basically the gas pedal for all your cells, and at this point, they're absolutely flooring it.
To really get what's going wrong, we first have to understand how it's supposed to work. Because your body has this brilliant little control system designed to keep that engine running just right.
Okay, so check this out. Normally, there's this crucial feedback loop. High levels of T3 and T4 in your blood act like a stop signal to your brain. The brain sees this and says, whoa, okay, let's cut back on the thyroid-stimulating hormone, or TSH. That TSH is what tells the thyroid to work. But with primary hyperthyroidism, the thyroid gland basically goes rogue. It completely ignores the brain's signals to slow down. So you end up with tons of T3 and T4, but your TSH level is super low. And that is our first huge clue. So the million-dollar question is why? Why does the thyroid decide to go rogue in the first place? Well, it turns out there are two main ways this metabolic overload can happen, and they are fundamentally different from each other. Think about it like a factory. Is the hormone factory working insane overtime, just actively churning out way too much product? Or has the factory wall crumbled, leaking all the product it had in storage out into the world? It's overproduction versus a massive leak. Let's look at that first path. Path 1 is hyperfunctioning. This is when the thyroid cells themselves are just on fire. The most common cause by a long shot is something called Graves' disease. It's an autoimmune condition where your body makes these strange antibodies that don't attack the thyroid. Nope, they stimulate it. They act like a skeleton key for the TSH receptors, constantly telling the thyroid, make more, make more. Other causes can be these little overactive masses or nodules that just decide to make hormones all on their own, totally ignoring the brain. And this quote just nails it, right? It perfectly explains the problem in Graves' disease. These rogue antibodies are such a perfect mimic of the brain's real signal that they completely hijack the system and lock production into permanent hyperdrive. All right, now for path number 2, destruction. Here, the problem isn't that the factory is working too hard, it's that it's leaking. The little follicles where the hormone is stored get damaged and just burst open, releasing a flood of stored T3 and T4. This can happen in the early stages of Hashimoto's, sometimes after pregnancy, or even from a viral infection. And here's the key difference. This is often temporary. Once all that stored hormone is gone and the inflammation calms down, things can change. Sometimes the thyroid even becomes underactive later on. So whether it's from overproduction or a massive leak, the end result is the same. Way too much thyroid hormone in the blood. And let me tell you, that sends shock waves through every single system in the body. Let's take a look at how this all plays out, from simple jitters to a full-blown storm. With your metabolism just screaming along, you're burning through calories like crazy. You're losing weight even though you might be hungry all the time. Your body is generating so much heat you feel hot constantly. Your heart is racing, that's called tachycardia. Your whole nervous system is on high alert, which means anxiety, shakiness, and you can't sleep. Even your gut speeds up. Literally everything is moving way too fast. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. There are two signs that point specifically to Graves' disease. It turns out those same rogue antibodies that rev up the thyroid can also mess with the tissues behind your eyes and on your shins. This can cause the eyes to bulge forward, that's exophthalmos, and create this really unique, thick, orange peel skin on the shins. If a doctor sees these signs, they're almost certainly looking at Graves'. But what happens when you take this hyperdrive state and you throw a major stressor on top of it, like a bad infection or a big surgery? Well, you get the most dangerous complication of all, a thyroid storm. And this is a true life-or-death medical emergency. The body's internal furnace goes into absolute meltdown. We're talking about a core body temperature rocketing past 41.5 degrees Celsius. That's nearly 107 degrees Fahrenheit. I mean, the body is literally cooking itself from the inside out. And along with that terrifying fever comes severe agitation and delirium as the brain overheats. The heart is beating so fast and so hard, just trying to keep up with the body's insane metabolic demands, that eventually it can't. It begins to fail. It's a complete and total system meltdown.
Okay, wow. That is incredibly scary. So how in the world do doctors diagnose this and, more importantly, figure out which of those two paths, overproduction or destruction, is the real culprit? Well, it's actually some pretty clever detective work.
It all starts with a simple blood test. And right away, you see that classic pattern. TSH is in the basement and T4 is through the roof. Boom. That points the finger right at the thyroid. The next question is why, and for that, doctors use the special scan to see how the thyroid is using iodine, which is the fuel it needs to make hormones. And this is where the magic happens, because the scan's results tell the whole story. If the entire gland greedily soaks up the radioactive iodine, that's what we call diffuse high uptake. It's the classic sign of Graves' disease. If only one single hot spot lights up, that's a toxic adenoma. But if the gland takes up almost no iodine, well, that tells you it isn't actively making new hormone. The problem is a leak from destruction. It's thyroiditis. The scan just lays it all out, plain and simple. So once the cause has been found, doctors can finally move on to taming that out-of-control thyroid and getting the body's engine back to a normal speed. So, first things first, you have to manage the immediate danger. They'll use beta blockers to control symptoms like a racing heart and tremors, basically to put the brakes on the body's overdrive. Then, to get to the root of the problem, antithyroid drugs can block the factory from making new hormones. For a more permanent solution, doctors might use a targeted dose of radioactive iodine to carefully destroy the overactive cells. And, as a last resort, the gland can be surgically removed. Now, for that absolute emergency of a thyroid storm, the protocol is aggressive and incredibly precise. It's a multi-pronged attack. First, beta blockers to protect the heart. Next, a drug called PTU to immediately block any new hormone production. Then, and the timing here is critical, about an hour after the PTU, they give potassium iodide, which stuns the thyroid and stops it from releasing its stored hormones. Finally, steroids are given to block the conversion of T4 into the much more powerful T3. It's an all-out effort to cool the engine down fast. So from an engine stuck on full throttle to a system brought back into balance, that's the whole journey of hyperthyroidism. But it leaves us with a final question, doesn't it? After shutting down or even removing the body's master metabolic controller, what does life look like? Well, often it means a new journey, a lifetime of carefully managed hormone replacement to find that perfect, lifelong balance. A new challenge for sure, but one that allows for a return to a normal, healthy life.